The night before she had weakened and called Jim. She had had time to think. "You have time to think in the country," she said, lighting a cigarette and forcing a grin. "There's nothing else to do." And if Jim suspected me, it suddenly dawned on my weakened brain that he couldn't have done it himself. He'd heard of Margaret's statement from Bert Dean, and he was sorry as hell and quite decent. "But what am I to do, Lou? If I tell, won't they come down on Jim again? And I can't locate Herbert Dean anyhow." I did the only thing I could think of at the time. I took her firmly by the arm and into the elevator, and half an hour later she was telling her story to the police commissioner, who beyond a tendency to scratch now and then had apparently overcome the poison ivy. Chapter 42. That was on Saturday, August the 27th. The reign of terror had extended over 9 days, and there was talk about evacuating the Crescent to save further killings. Two or three timorous families on Euclid Street behind us had already moved themselves, their children and their family pets to remote spots in the country. Even the avenue in our neighborhood was largely deserted at night. The press was screaming about the homicidal maniac who was still at large, and one tabloid, having exhausted all other resources, dug up from an unknown source the old story of John Talbot and his love affair, with its tragic ending. From that moment the search for Mr. Talbot was almost as intensive as that for Lydia herself. Mr. Lancaster was buried that afternoon, police reserves having been called out to control the crowds around the gate and elsewhere, and a half-dozen motorcycle men escorting the body to and keeping the cemetery clear. I had flatly refused to go there, much to Mother's indignation. "I had never thought that a daughter of mine," she said, "would be found failing in respect to the dead." "I am not going, Mother." "Is that any way to speak to me, Louisa? Really, sometimes I wonder if all this trouble hasn't done something very strange to you." "I'm afraid it has, Mother." She whirled from where she was standing in front of her mirror, pinning on her hat with its long dull beaded black pins. "Just what do you mean by that?" she demanded. "I suppose," I said carefully, "it has taught me my right to live while I can." "To live my own life, not yours, Mother." "Not anyone's but mine. My own." She stared at me with incredulous eyes. "And that to me, from my own child. All I have left, after years of sacrifice for her. Just what have you sacrificed, Mother? I said, as gently as I could. Haven't I been the sacrifice? Isn't this whole crescent a monument to the sacrifice of some one or other? And to what? To security? Then where is it? To how things look? They don't look so well just now, do they? If you believe in either one or the other, you might look out the window. She made no answer to that. She gathered up her dull black bag, straightened the folds of her mourning veil, and went to the door. There she stopped and turned. I would like to know, she said bitterly, if Dr. Armstrong has put these outrageous notions into your head. No, I told her. It was someone else, and if he ever asks me to marry him, I shall do so. I doubt if she heard much of the funeral service that day. I know that when she returned she locked herself into her bedroom, and that she did not speak to me again for 24 hours. But as those 24 hours were filled with excitement, I am afraid I felt this punishment less than I should. There had been no sign whatever of Lydia Talbot through all of Saturday. Downtown in the district attorney's office, Helen was being examined on her story of Emily Lancaster's last night, with the usual group about her, and the only result the complete destruction of Margaret's theory. And, although no one knew this at the time, Herbert Dean had spent at least a part of the day going from one hairdresser to another, carrying a photograph with him. The remainder of the time, or some portion of it, he spent in a lodging house on a narrow street behind the hospital, the address of which he had obtained, not without difficulty, from the blotter he had taken from Emily Lancaster's desk in the McMullen house. There, as I know now, he got permission from a reluctant landlady to examine a small furnished room, extremely tidy, but from which all traces of its recent occupant had been taken the night before. Except for the books. The room was almost filled with books. Must have been quite a reader. Yes, sir. He didn't do much else. I was sorry to lose him. He'd been here 10 years? Is he sending for these books? Well, now, that's funny for a man as fond of them as he was.